before you label or condemn me. Don't treat me like a criminal.
So they're saying Neverland is where Michael Jackson took children to protect them from what was being done on Epstein's island.
I'll never forget that. Michael Jackson saved me from getting on a plane to that tiny island.
For decades, Michael Jackson has been one of the most polarizing figures in history. He was loved by millions, but he was also haunted by accusations that followed him until his death. Now, a new rumor is circulating online, claiming that Paris Hilton, someone who has spoken about her own experiences with mistreatment, has allegedly suggested that Michael Jackson used his Neverland ranch to protect children from what was happening on Epstein's island. Now, this has left many people confused, given Jackson's questionable relationship with children. He was accused, tried, and was acquitted, but the questions about what happened at Neverland never fully went away. Now, in the wake of the Epstein files, some have revisited Jackson's story through a new lens, not as a predator, but as a protector, a man who saw what was happening in Epstein's world and created his own sanctuary to keep children safe. So today, we examine the rumors, Jackson's history with children, his legal battles, his Neverland ranch, and the question that has resurfaced in the wake of the Epstein files: was Michael Jackson a predator or a protector? And why, after all these years, are we still trying to decide?
I don't want to watch that Michael Jackson thing. He's not alive to defend himself, so it's
Correct.
weird. It's also stories. People tell the truth in stories sometimes, and sometimes they don't, and you don't know. It was always weird. No one knew why, with all the rumors that everybody had ever heard about Michael Jackson, that anybody would let their kids go and hang out with him.
When the Epstein files were unsealed, a photograph surfaced that sent shockwaves through the internet. Michael Jackson and Jeffrey Epstein standing together somewhere in Palm Beach. Now, the reaction following this picture was immediate and furious. The image was shared millions of times, and it didn't take long for people to start making assumptions. Michael Jackson was connected to Epstein, the king of pop, linked to the most infamous network in modern history. And given MJ's history with kids, a lot of people had a lot to say. Somehow, that is not a shock to me. Sorry, I grew up on Michael Jackson's music. He was a terrific entertainer, but he was a freak.
To share your bed with someone.
Yes.
As we sit here today, do you still think that it's acceptable to share your bed with children?
Of course. Of course, why not? If you're going to be a if you're going to be Jack the Ripper, if you're going to be a it's not a good idea.
However, not everyone was quick to accuse Michael of being guilty. This explains everything. Michael was totally set up by these PDFs, RIPMJ. It was always all about control. They got to Michael Jackson through doctors. Everybody settled for the fall guy doctor who was not in the room.
And fans, I wish to convey my deepest gratitude for your love and support. I am doing well and I am strong. As you may already know, after my tour ended, I remain out of the country undergoing treatment for a dependency on pain medication. This medication was initially prescribed to see the excruciating pain that I was suffering after recent reconstructive surgery on my scalp. There have been many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false. As I have maintained from the very beginning, I am hoping for a speedy end to this horrifying experience to which I have been subjected.
Now, believe what you want about Michael, but the Epstein files themselves tell a different story. You see, Michael Jackson's name appears in the Epstein documents, but it appears alongside hundreds of other names, such as Alec Baldwin, Naomi Campbell, Mick Jagger, Prince Andrew, and Andrew Cuomo. Names of people who moved in the same elite circles, but were not accused of crimes. At the time the photograph was taken, Epstein was still known publicly as a wealthy financier. He moved in elite social circles. He attended events, and he was photographed with many celebrities. The crimes that would define his legacy were not yet public at the time. That being said, new claims are circulating online, alleging that Paris Hilton told her inner circle that Michael Jackson used Neverland to protect children from Epstein. Not only that, the allegations further claim MJ knew what was happening on the island and created a sanctuary to keep kids safe. Now, let me be clear. All these are unverified allegations. allegations. Paris Hilton has not said this publicly, but the speculation has taken on a life of its own. Posts on X claim Michael Jackson used Neverland to protect kids from Epstein. Another claims Michael Jackson was silenced due to what he knew about the elites at Epstein. Others even go as far as to claim that Neverland is where Michael Jackson took children to protect them from what was being done on Epstein's island. Now, here is the thing. There is no actual way to prove these claims to be true or false. However, if you take a step back and look at MJ's past, it could give you an idea of what actually happened. Michael Jackson has been a polarizing figure for decades. To his fans, he was the king of pop, a man who gave the world music that will never die. To his critics, he was something else entirely, a figure surrounded by controversy, legal battles, and questions that never fully went away. In 1993, the first allegations against MJ surfaced. In 2003, he was charged, and in 2005, he stood trial.
In the last few weeks, a large amount of ugly, malicious information has been released into the media about me. Apparently, this information was leaked through transcripts in a grand jury proceeding, where neither my lawyers nor I ever appeared. The information is disgusting and false. Years ago, I allowed a family to visit and spend some time at Neverland. Neverland is my home. I allowed this family into my home because they told me their son was ill with cancer and needed my help. Through the years, I have helped thousands of children who were ill or in distress. These events have caused a nightmare for my family, my children, and me. I never intend to place myself in so vulnerable a position ever again. I love my community, and I have great faith in our justice system. Please keep an open mind and let me have my day in court. I deserve a fair trial like every other American citizen. I will be acquitted and vindicated when the truth is told. Thank you.
The world watched as the most famous man on earth fought to clear his name. He was acquitted on all counts. The jury found him innocent, but public suspicion lingered. The questions about what happened at Neverland never fully disappeared. When Michael Jackson's name appeared in the Epstein files, the reaction was immediate. People saw the photograph, saw the connection, and assumed the worst. The horrific nature of Epstein's crimes and Jackson's already controversial public image created a perfect storm of outrage. But a closer examination reveals a more nuanced story. The files did not accuse Michael Jackson of any crime. They did not link him to Epstein's network. His name does not appear on flight logs to the island. Now, the photograph that started this whole scandal was clarified by Michael Jackson's former bodyguard, Matt Fitties, who said the photo with Epstein was taken during a house hunting trip in Palm Beach in 2002 or 2003. And according to him, Michael's and Epstein's meeting in that photo was extremely short and completely professional. However, when you start digging into Michael's ranch, that's where this story just becomes very questionable.
This is Neverland, the currently for sale former home and playground of music icon Michael Jackson. It's 10 years since the star performer died, but he continues to make news. The headlines these days, though, are less about him being king of pop, more about him being king of the kids, and persistent claims the eccentric megastar was a child abuser. His latest accuser is Adrian McManus, who knew the star's private life.
Neverland Ranch was Michael Jackson's sanctuary, a 2,700-acre property in Santa Barbara County, complete with a zoo, amusement rides, theaters, and sprawling gardens. Michael called it a place where children, especially those battling illness or coming from difficult circumstances, could experience joy and safety. Supporters argue that Jackson, having lost his own childhood to fame, wanted to create a joyful place for children. Critics question why a grown man would create a space centered around children and why some former visitors later made accusations. But one voice has been consistent through the decades: Macaulay Culkin. The Home Alone star spent time at Neverland as a child. He testified under oath during the 2005 trial that Jackson never touched or harmed him. For over 20 years, he has reiterated that stance in interviews, emphatically defending Jackson. Now, in the wake of the Epstein files, a new narrative has emerged. One that suggests Jackson was not a predator but a protector. He knew what was happening on Epstein's island and used Neverland to shield children from it. Culkin's story has been central to this narrative. He has said that Jackson stopped him from getting on a plane to an island linked to Epstein, that Jackson intervened and protected him from harm. But the inclusion of certain images at certain times has led some to suspect that the release is not simply about transparency, it is about narrative control. Consider the photograph of Donald Trump, Melania Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell. It appeared in the files. Then, quietly, it was removed by the Department of Justice. The public outcry was immediate. Why was this image being hidden? What were they trying to protect? The DOJ reversed course. The photograph was restored, but the message was clear. Some images are deemed more dangerous than others. Critics argue that the release of Jackson's image alongside Epstein's files serves a purpose: to distract, to flood the narrative with a polarizing figure, to generate outrage, to keep the public focused on Jackson, while more politically sensitive figures with documented long-term relationships with Epstein remain in the background. Jackson's photograph appears, the public reacts, the conversation becomes about him. Meanwhile, the photograph of Trump and Epstein was removed, then restored, only after public pressure forced it back into view. The question is not whether Jackson was connected to Epstein. The files do not prove that. The question is, why was his image released, and what were they hoping we would look away from?